Somewhere at the bottom of the world, buried under 100 feet of snow or resting silently on the floor of a freezing ocean, there is a giant that no human being has seen in over 60 years. It is the size of a house on wheels. It has a kitchen inside it, bunks, a workshop, fuel tanks big enough to cross a continent. There is even space on its roof for a small aeroplane. It was one of the most ambitious machines ever built, designed to carry explorers deep into Antarctica, to go where no vehicle had ever gone, to conquer the most hostile place on Earth. It cost a fortune. It made headlines around the world. Crowds lined the streets just to watch it roll past. And then it reached the ice. In its entire life, on the continent it was built to conquer, this magnificent giant traveled about 90 miles, most of it backwards, and then it never moved again. They abandoned it in the snow. The ice slowly swallowed it, and one day, it simply vanished from the face of the Earth. Think about that for a moment. A machine so famous that an entire country turned out to cheer it, and today, we don't even know if it's on land or under the sea. It didn't crash in a fireball. It wasn't blown up. It simply got stuck, was left behind, and let the ice quietly erase it. This is the story of the snow cruiser, the boldest machine ever sent to Antarctica, and the single simple mistake that doomed it before it even began. The story starts, strangely enough, with a man who nearly froze to death. His name was Thomas Poulter, an American scientist. Years earlier, he had gone to Antarctica on a famous expedition, and something happened down there that he would never forget. A small group of men, including the expedition's own leader, became trapped at a remote outpost, cut off by the brutal weather, slowly being poisoned by fumes from their own stove. Poulter helped lead a desperate rescue across the ice, in the dark and the killing cold, not knowing if they would reach the men in time. They survived, but the experience burned itself into him. And afterwards, he kept turning over one simple, haunting question. What if the base itself could move? What if, when disaster struck, you didn't have to send men out into the storm, because your shelter could simply drive itself to safety? Out of that near tragedy came an idea. Not a sled, not a truck, a vast, self-contained, rolling home. A mobile base that could carry a crew across Antarctica, keep them warm and fed and safe for an entire year, and go anywhere the ice would allow. And you can understand the pull of that dream. Antarctica had already killed men, swallowed whole expeditions, frozen the bold and the careful alike. The idea of a warm, safe fortress that could simply drive away from danger must have felt less like engineering and more like a promise. A promise that no one would ever be left out there to die again. It was a beautiful idea, born out of fear, and Poulter was determined to build it. What Poulter designed was less a vehicle than a small building that could drive. It was about 55 feet long, longer than a bus, and it stood as tall as a two-story house. It weighed over 30 tons, and inside it had almost everything a team of explorers could need for a year at the bottom of the world. There were bunks for a crew of 5, a kitchen, a workshop for repairs, a darkroom for developing photographs, fuel tanks big enough, on paper, to drive 5,000 miles across the ice. And up on the roof, cradled and ready, sat a small aircraft, so the crew could fly out and survey the land around them. The wheels were extraordinary. 4 of them, each 10 feet tall, each with its own motor, each able to steer on its own. They could even be pulled up into the body of the machine. The idea being that the cruiser could retract a wheel, slide its nose out over a deadly crevasse, and simply drive across the gap. On paper, it was genius. A rolling fortress against the cruelest environment on the planet. And the confidence behind it was total. This wasn't a cautious prototype, quietly tested and slowly improved. It was built at full size, in a hurry, and sent straight to the harshest place on Earth to prove itself in front of the whole world. Everyone involved was certain it would work. That certainty was about to meet the snow. There was just one small detail buried underneath all that ambition that nobody thought hard enough about: the tires. They built it in Chicago in a frantic rush in just 11 weeks. And when it was finished, they faced a simple problem. They had to get this enormous machine to a ship on the coast, more than 1,000 miles away. So they did the only thing they could. They drove it there. What followed was pure spectacle. This gigantic beast rolled out onto the public roads of America and made its way east, and the whole country lost its mind for it. People lined the streets. Traffic backed up for miles. Children were let out of school just to watch it pass. Newspapers ran breathless stories about the wonder machine that was going to conquer the South Pole. It wasn't a flawless journey. At one point, on a bend in Ohio, the massive machine slid clean off the road and ended up nose down in a creek, and it took days to haul it back out. But even that just fed the legend. Tens of thousands of people drove out to see it stuck in the mud. There is something almost heartbreaking about that excitement, looking back. All those hopeful faces along the roadside, all those headlines, all that pride. They were cheering a machine that had never once been tested on the very thing it was built for. They were in love with a promise, and the promise was about to break. By the time it reached the coast and was loaded onto its ship, the snow cruiser was famous. An entire nation had fallen in love with it, and not one of them had yet seen it touch a single flake of snow. In January 1940, after a long voyage south, the ship arrived at the edge of Antarctica. Now came the moment everything had been building toward. They had to get the giant off the ship and onto the ice. The crew built a ramp out of timber and began to ease the enormous machine down towards the frozen shore. Halfway down, the wood cracked and gave way beneath its weight. One wheel punched straight through the ramp, and for a heart-stopping moment, the whole thing teetered on the edge of sliding into the freezing sea. Poulter gunned the engines. The cruiser lurched, caught itself, and clawed its way down onto solid ice. The crew cheered, and then the cheering stopped, because the moment the machine actually tried to drive across the snow, its beautiful, smooth tires just spun. They found no grip at all. The giant sank, a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, down into the soft snow, its wheels turning uselessly, going nowhere. The tires had been designed smooth, for firm ground. No treads, no grips, nothing to bite into the ice. And with only 300 horsepower trying to shift 34 tons, the cruiser simply did not have the strength to drag itself free. Picture what that must have felt like. Years of work, an entire ocean crossed, a whole nation watching from home. And now the great machine sat there, engines roaring, wheels spinning, throwing up useless sprays of snow, and going nowhere at all. The dream was still in one piece. It just couldn't take a single confident step forward. In a single, sickening moment, on the ice it had crossed an entire ocean to reach. The most ambitious vehicle in the world discovered that it could barely move at all. The crew refused to give up. They bolted the 2 spare tires onto the front wheels. They wrapped chains around the rear ones. They tried everything they could think of to find some grip. Nothing worked. The cruiser still wallowed and spun and sank. And then they discovered something almost too painful to be true. The machine worked better in reverse. Driven backwards, the wheels finally found just enough grip to crawl along. So there it was, the grandest vehicle ever built to push forward into the unknown. A machine designed to boldly cross an entire continent could only really move by going backwards. The longest single journey it ever made in Antarctica was about 90 miles. Every mile of it driven in reverse. And that was it. That was the sum total of its great expedition. The dream of crossing 5,000 miles of ice ended at 90, traveled backwards, in the wrong direction, going almost nowhere. There is a strange, sad poetry in that image. A machine built as a symbol of moving forward, of pushing bravely into the unknown, reduced to inching backwards across the ice, in the wrong direction, like something retreating from a fight it had already lost. It had come so terribly far, to go so pitifully little. Eventually, they simply stopped trying to drive it. They packed snow around it for insulation and turned the great rolling base into what it would remain for the rest of its life. A building, a stationary shelter, a house that had crossed an ocean to sit perfectly still. For a while, the crew lived inside it and did real science, measuring the ice, studying the cosmos above, mapping the land around them. But the world was changing fast. War was spreading across the globe, and soon America needed its men and its money elsewhere. In 1941, the expedition packed up and left. They marked the snow cruiser's position with a few bamboo poles poking up out of the snow, and they walked away. And then the ice went to work. When explorers came back a few years later, they found the cruiser almost buried, but still there, still solid, still waiting. They said it needed little more than some air in its tires to run again. The last time anyone ever saw it was in 1958. A team spotted the tops of those bamboo poles, dug down through the snow, and stepped inside. And what they found was a perfect time capsule. Everything was exactly as the crew had left it, nearly 20 years before. Magazines on the shelves, papers on the desks, cigarettes still sitting where someone had set them down. A frozen moment sealed in ice. Then they climbed back out. And no human being has ever seen the snow cruiser again. The great shelf of ice it was parked on is forever cracking and breaking away into the sea. Sometime in the years that followed, a huge piece of it calved off, and the snow cruiser, along with the base around it, was carried away. Think about that image for a second. A fully stocked home, frozen and sealed, drifting silently out into a dark ocean on a slab of ice. The bunks still made, the papers still on the desk. A whole little world built with such hope in a Chicago workshop, quietly slipping beneath the waves at the far end of the earth, with no one there to watch it go. Today, nobody knows exactly where it is. It may still be entombed deep in the ice, or it may be resting, quietly, on the floor of the freezing ocean at the very bottom of the world. So what killed the snow cruiser? It wasn't a rival. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't even really the war. The truth is stranger and far more human than that. This was a machine that thought of everything, except the one thing that mattered most. They designed a kitchen and bunks and a darkroom and a workshop. They planned for a whole year of survival. They fitted it with an aeroplane. They imagined it crossing 5,000 miles of the most dangerous ground on the planet. And they sent it all that way to Antarctica on tires that couldn't grip the snow. It is almost unbearably human. All that brilliance, all that ambition, all that money and effort and dreaming, undone by something as small as the tread on a tire. And maybe that is the part worth carrying with you. Because it is easy to dream up the grand things, the kitchens and the aeroplanes and the year-long journeys. It is the small, boring, obvious details that quietly decide whether any of it will ever actually work. The snow cruiser wasn't foolish. In almost every way, it was magnificent. It simply forgot to ask whether it could move. We remember the giants that roared and exploded. This one is different. It failed quietly, almost politely, beaten not by some great catastrophe, but by a detail so obvious that everyone simply assumed someone else had already thought about it. And that, in the end, might be the most dangerous kind of failure there is. So here is a question to leave you with. What magnificent thing, being built somewhere right now, is resting on a small detail that everyone has forgotten to check. This has been The Wrong Future.